our Java class, we're going to continue with the lecture that we started. So we were on the slide where now if you look, in addition to that constructor, right, this was the constructor that we had seen where they created the object Tom, and as soon as Tom was created, the constructor is automatically invoked, and Tom.CheckingBalance and Tom.SavingBalance were given the initial value 0. Now in addition to the constructor, what they did was they added two public methods. Okay, notice that they're public. And even notice the constructor is public, and that's how it typically is always, you guys. The attributes of the bank of the class are made private, and the methods, including the constructor, which is a special method, is made public. Okay, so they made two public methods called getChecking and getSavings, and here the return type is double, and what are they doing? They are returning the checking balance and they're returning the savings balance. Read this note, you guys, it's very important. It says the next two methods are read-only methods that return private data values. Such methods are traditionally called get methods, and get is often in the name. So this is just the typical standard that you will use whenever you make a class and you have attributes for that class. You will typically always create get methods in order to have access to those variables for a read-only purpose. Like in this case, I'm not manipulating these values, I'm just reading it, right? So the reason why I'm reading it is so that I'm able to display it on my console in this case. So that I'm able to do something like Tom.getChecking to see what is in his checking account and what is in his savings account. Okay, moving on. Object methods, aka non-static methods. You guys may have noticed the previous chapter when we started making classes and methods in our classes, we had to put the keyword static before every method we created, because those methods that we created were actually class methods. So all your class methods have the keyword static, but the key difference between defining a class method and an object method is the keyword static. Object methods do not have the keyword static in their heading. So now they're continuing, they're writing something more in this, you guys. So this is the bank class. You guys already have seen the default, the constructor bank, right, which had initial value 0. Right now, what they did was they had another method called bank, which tells you that if it has the same name as that of the class, it's also a constructor. But hey, how can I have two methods with the same name? In the case of a constructor, you guys, in this particular case, what this is it is showing you something called an overloaded method. This stage demonstrates how to create an overloaded method. The second constructor has the same identifier. When they say identifier, it's the name as our first constructor. However, the second constructor has a different heading signature. And if you notice, what they're talking about is here, there are certain parameters in this method, but here, no parameters. The second constructor allows user input for the constructor. This program also shows that it is possible to have two bank accounts. This is only possible with a class that has object methods. Okay, this is only possible with a class that has object methods. So right here, you have Tom, bank, Tom, new bank, right? Here you created a Tom object, but as you're creating Sue's object, look what you do. You pass in parameters, and you guys did this as well in your bank class. What happened was with passing parameters, the compiler now is smart enough to know that, hey, I'm not going to invoke this constructor, which you guys is also called a default constructor. This which takes in no parameters. But I'm going to invoke the special parameterized constructor, which is now taking input parameters, and therefore Sue.CheckingBalance is going to be 2000 and Sue.SavingBalance is going to be 2000. Okay. So that's what they're trying to show you, this default constructor. That is called your default constructor. And this is called your overloaded constructor because it has the same name as their default constructor. So their constructors were the same. Okay, that we saw and was expected. Constructor notes. Constructors are methods which are called during the instantiation of an object with the new operator. The primary purpose of a constructor is a way to initialize all the attributes of a newly created object. Constructors have the same identifier as the class, same name as that of the class. Constructors are neither void methods nor are they return methods. This is very important, guys. This is a common mistake we tend to do. That is, because we're so used to putting data types for our return and for our return types. So do remember that constructors, they're neither void methods nor are they return methods. They're just simply constructors. Constructors are always declared public. Constructors can be overloaded methods. The method identifier can be the same, but the method signature, which is the parameter list, must be different. A constructor with no parameters is called your default constructor. So this is a summary, you guys, of constructors. Pause right here if you want to still read it, okay? Because these are all important key facts that you'll need to remember about constructors. Okay, what do we have here? So two methods are added that can read and write the attributes. These methods make deposits to the checking and savings account. Okay, so what they added here are checking deposit and savings deposit. Okay, and they're trying to highlight to you what they're doing through these two methods, which are public, right? And these are again object methods. What they're doing is checking balance plus equals amount, and saving balance plus equals amount. An amount is the parameter that is coming in as an input when this method is called. So if we look at the main and see what's happening, looks like you are now invoking the overloaded constructor for Tom, the overloaded constructor for Sue, right? And you're passing in these parameters. So these are their initial values. Then you're doing something like tom.checkingDeposit. That means whatever value you're passing here is going to go to the amount, and tom.checkingBalance is going to be updated with that amount. So from 1,000, with a deposit of 1,000, Tom is now going to be at 2,000. Okay? And likewise for Sue. So what they try to highlight here, you guys, is these methods which let you manipulate the attributes of a class associated with a class are called as set or mutator or read-write methods. So remember, those first set of methods that you saw, the get saving balance and get checking balance, right? Those are called your get methods. Let's just go back quickly and see that. They're called your read-only methods, called your get methods, and often have get in their name. Okay? Then those allow you to access the attributes associated with a class. And if you move on, these are called your set methods, which let you manipulate or these let you change the value that you have of your attributes in that class. They call this your set methods or mutator methods. Okay. All right. What do we have here? So here, these methods that make withdrawals from your checking and savings account. Note that withdrawal methods have no protection against taking out money than you have, more money than you have. So what they're saying is right here, we have this method called checking withdrawal and savings withdrawal. Okay, you're passing in an amount and then you're taking out amount. So that was deposit, right? They were set or mutator methods. Here, what you're doing is you are modifying your checking balance and saving balance by withdrawing an amount. But what they're trying to say is, hey, what if I try to withdraw how much ever I want? There is no protection. Well, to get around that, and this is not something that happens in real life, right? We don't do that. So what you will do is actually add this protection. In a case like this, you can do that. Like you can check if amount is greater than checking balance, that if you're trying to withdraw an amount greater than what your checking balance really is, print insufficient funds, transaction refused. And only else, if that's not the case, go ahead and reduce the amount. Likewise for the savings withdrawal. Okay. Final stage. The bank removes the class from so what they're doing is they are removing the bank class from this Java class file and they're moving it to its own bank.java file. It all should still work the same, and you guys have the experience of doing this, right? But when I did that, remember I put the keyword public. So again, summarizing you guys, these are my attributes, right? They are the members, the data members of this class, the variables basically of this class. They are always private. Then I have constructor, same name as that of the class, bank and bank. One is default, one is the overloaded. Then I have certain get methods or read-only methods, like get checking, get savings, which all their job is to return whatever these attributes store, return the values of these attributes. Therefore, they have the return types associated with these attributes. Then you have set or mutator methods, which actually modify whatever value is stored in these attributes. Checking deposit, savings deposit, checking withdrawal, and savings withdrawal. These are all your set or mutator methods. Okay. Classes in separate file. The previous program works because the bank.java file is located in the same folder as this file. Remember, it is very common to put each class in its own file. This is also the same reason why expo.java file is located in the same folder as well. You guys have seen this. Method summary. Class methods are sometimes called static methods because they have the keyword static in their heading. Class methods are called with the class identifier, not with an object of the class, right? We do something like expo.drawLine or math.pow. This is practical when there is no need to make multiple objects of the class. So when do you guys know, when should I make class methods? When should I make object methods? Well, depending on if you have to make multiple instances of a certain class, then you probably want to declare it in such a way that you're able to do that, right? Then you will probably not put that keyword static for your methods in order to enable that. A good example is Java's math class. But if the only purpose is just to group certain related methods in a separate class and you will not be making multiple objects, then you would not need to add that then you would add that keyword static and just make that as a class with class methods. So this is another example, Piggy, class Piggy, and these look like public static double savings. So what these are like our class. This is a class variable, and these are all our class methods. Object methods are sometimes called non-static methods because they do not have the keyword static. Object methods are meant for those situations where multiple objects of a class must be constructed. This is important. Object methods are meant for those situations where multiple objects of a class must be constructed. An object must be constructed with the new operator, and then the object methods are called using the object identifier, not the class name, right? Tom.checkingDeposit, not bank.checkingDeposit. So what they're trying to say here, Piggy, Tom, and new Piggy, Tom.init data. Here, they have taken the word static out. So they're just trying to show you the two examples. So here, with the keyword static, I'm directly doing piggy.initData, piggy.showData. But if I really wanted to make the Piggy class like an object, where I created a Piggy's bank, I guess, for Tom, right? Then I take that keyword static off. Non-static method. Public methods, essentially, public methods can be accessed anywhere. The majority of methods are public. Private or helper methods, occasionally a method is created in a class that is never called outside the class. In such a case, the method should be declared private. So you guys have to use your best judgment. If you create a method in a class that will never be needed outside the class, it's only created as a helper for other methods, then you create them as private. And public, you can use them outside, like your get methods and your mutator and set methods. Void methods do not return a value and use the reserved word void to indicate that no value will be returned. Return methods are methods that return a value, like your get methods. Second, you will see return statement at the end of the method body. You guys got that. Default constructor methods, constructor special method automatically called during the instantiation of a new object. No visible constructor is provided. Java will provide its own constructor, default constructor. Additionally, we also called no parameter constructor a default constructor. No parameters, that's a default constructor. So if no visible constructor is provided, Java will provide its own constructor. Overloaded constructor, one that takes in parameters. Accessing get methods, right? Altering, modifying, mutator, set methods. Sorry I rushed to that, you guys. Thank you.